My name's Ruth Croft. I'm a Kiwi from New Zealand, and I run on the international Scott running team. For people who want to push themselves in life, I think running is a good way. You can start off and just set yourself small goals, and once you achieve them, you start thinking of the bigger picture, and you can reach towards bigger goals, and along the way you'll learn a lot about yourself that you probably would never have known or discovered had you not started running. When I was 18, I got offered a track and cross-country scholarship to the US. Of course, it was scary because I was leaving my home and everything that was familiar to me. I had a lot of injuries, and so when I graduated from the US, I decided that I wanted to give running up. Once in my life, running didn't dictate where I was going to go. And I decided to move to Taipei, Taiwan. When I got there, I couldn't speak the language. I started partying a lot, drinking a lot, put on a lot of weight, and so I decided to get back into running, just firstly to be healthy, but also when I moved to Taiwan, I didn't know anyone, so I used it as a way to meet other people, and then it was just a progression really from there. But I didn't have the right environment to train for the races that I was training for. So that's why I moved back to New Zealand, because I just wanted to be in the right training environment. All these experiences have taught me to see the world not through the way that I was brought up in. Not necessarily is your culture the right or wrong way, but I saw a different way of seeing the world. Daring is just giving something a go. You've got to be willing to take that first step and not be scared, because if you don't, you'll never know what it could be or what it could bring to you.
Hello and welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're tuning in from. I'd like to welcome you to this special Go Live broadcast put on by Sportalicious Malaysia and Scott Running. Today we've got a really interesting and amazing panel. We'll have Ruth Croft, a global ambassador who you just seen in the video. We'll have from Scott Global Marketing Division, Pete, who's the Scott Running Product Manager. We'll also have Alessandro Sherpa, who is a Scott Asia Elite Ambassador, and I will be hosting this session. Michael McLean, I'm one of the Scott Asia Elite Ambassadors as well. So without ado, I would like to welcome Pete to the broadcast.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Hey, how are you, Pete?
I'm really well, really well. The sun is shining here in Switzerland, so we really feel like we're moving into the summer now, and yeah, it's nice to be speaking to you.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks for joining us, and it's a pleasure to have you on board. So yeah, I think the first part of this, we're going to focus on Scott Running, some of the equipment, the design, and also what the brand stands for and where the brand's going and heading. Focusing specifically on kind of the running division.
Okay,
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. As we know, Scott's kind of famous for bikes, winter sports, motorsports. What made Scott decide to get into the running aspect of the sports?
Yeah, I think it was really two key things. I mean, first of all, we always start with our customers, and we're quite kind of led in kind of watching what people are doing and seeing their interests. And I mean, we've been making products. We've been around for now 62 years. The company was started in the US by a kind of a maverick inventor, Ed Scott. And he first started off just kind of doing the same thing, looking at what people were doing around him. He saw that they were using old bamboo ski poles, and he was actually a sheet metal worker. So he started rolling aluminium ski poles just because he saw a kind of a customer need for it, but also really with innovation. I mean, this is kind of the heart of what the guy was about, and the company's still pretty much the same. We saw a lot of our customers now, whether they're ski tourers and they're looking to stay fit during the summer months using trail running, or they're cyclists getting off the bike, whether that's a triathlon, duathlon, or just exploring new trails as runners. So, we kind of reacted to what our customers were doing and what they wanted, but also true to kind of Ed's original spirit. We felt we could bring something on the product side as well, and bring some innovation and some new technologies through to the marketplace. So kind of really, customer led, but also always keeping true to that kind of keeping product really at the core of everything we do.
Yeah, thanks. And I think focusing on that, Scott vision of the high technology and high quality gear. Why did you decide for trail rather than road?
Well, we originally started our running project more linked to triathlon because of kind of that was where the customers were, I guess, 10 years ago. But as we saw trail running develop, this just found a more natural home for us. We're ski tourers, we're mountain bikers. Our office here in Switzerland, we're kind of right in the base of the Alps. It's where we play at the weekends and in the evenings. So trail running just had a kind of a natural fit for us as a brand. It's not that we don't make road product. We still have some road product in the collection, and this is certainly an important market for us. But it's kind of what we have here on our doorstep, and so we also think that this traction story, kind of keeping people moving efficiently. I mean, everyone's now starting to run longer distances. I know yourself. You just recently completed a keep the passion, a run at home challenge, 131k, I believe, on the treadmill. So I mean, this kind of longer distance thing is really addictive. And this is where the product makes more difference. I think, this is where we have to spend a bit more time getting it right for people. And so for us, being a really product-led company, it's really exciting to see more and more people running longer distances, and specifically in the mountains when they can.
Yep. No, and I can second that running the longer distances, it becomes more and more and more addictive. And then it becomes down to, you want this high quality, this good branded gear on you so that you don't have to think about gear and you can put yourself in your own little mental space.
Yeah.
And I think that's some of what alludes into the next question, with so many reputable, long-standing brands focusing solely on trail running, i.e., your Solomons, your Hokas, and many other brands out there. What made Scott confident that they could break into this market and really succeed in this market?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that the brands are moving. Trail running is becoming a bigger business. I mean, it's one part logistics. I mean, putting on road races and running in busy environments was difficult before the kind of the COVID-19 situation, and now even more so, people are just going to be looking for a little bit more open space. I mean, anyone that's been trail running, I mean, you move slower, it's perhaps a little bit harder work, but I mean, the rewards are there. So the reason I think we can be successful is, I mean, we always stay true to those principles. We're just looking at what the consumer's doing and trying to answer a need for them, and then keeping the product really at the core of what we do. And we're product geeks. That's what we do. We really kind of geek out on the outsoles in particular and the traction. We want people to be able to move safely, but also really fast. And you see some of yourself and some of the other guys and girls you'll speak to today. They're about moving quickly over insane distances, but still moving fast. And that's really where the traction story and the product kind of plays its role.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks, Pete. When you guys first launched your trail running collection, think back to then, what were some of the challenges and your key challenges you faced back then?
Yeah, I mean, we're quite lucky in a way. We weren't a startup. I mean, we'd been, like I said, we've been going for at that point around 50 years as a brand. So we had a lot of production and product expertise within the company already. We already had a really robust distribution network. We have partners all around the world. So, you know, a lot of the challenges maybe a startup would face weren't there necessarily for us. But of course, you still have to find your way. You've got to find what it is that makes your product different. And so, you know, footwear is a difficult product. It's a really close fitting and personal product. I mean, hence why, you know, you go into any running store and there's 50, 60 different models to choose from, because it's a very personal choice, and getting it right takes a long time to kind of get right on our side. So the usual challenges for a footwear brand, you know, figuring out kind of, well, what are you going to do? What need will you service to the customer? But yeah, you know, like I say, we are part of a bigger group, which was definitely a help to us. But it's been 10 years now since we started the project. And we kind of live and breathe, if you like, our company motto, which is no shortcut. So we're not kind of rushing to push. We're taking our time, and we want to get the product right, and really have a robust business for many years to go forward. So it's about kind of, yes, maybe smaller steps. It's not be too cliche. It is not just a marathon; it's probably an ultra marathon. So you know, we try to do. We're in this for the long haul for sure.
Excellent. And on those challenges you faced back then, how are they different now and in today's market, and especially with everything that's going on around COVID-19, and kind of the reemergence of what we'll see at the end of this, you know, kind of the new economy, and even a new social standpoint, as you alluded to earlier, you know, with some distancing, and then what's going to happen with trail running and ultra trail running.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two things here really. The first is that there's huge opportunities for sports brands. I mean, we've seen that people aren't going out to bars and restaurants, and unfortunately holidays are being curtailed as well. But that just means that people have more time and money to spend on sports. And I think that, you know, personally, I'm seeing a lot of people also just reconnecting with their love of sport, whether that's something they haven't been on the bike since they were or running since they were at school. They're now kind of reconnecting with it. So I think on that side, it's a real positive. I think we can all spend more time with our families, and all spend more time in nature and just doing sport. So I think for this, it's a real positive for us. Of course, there's huge negatives around the world. You know, the human and personal loss that people are facing, of course. But there's massive challenges from a commercial standpoint. The internet, you know, started affecting retail in a big way, you know, 10 years ago. And that's just really been accelerated by this. So brands are going to have to be agile. We need to we need to connect with our customers and support those retailers. We have a lot of really strong partners, retail partners, and distribution partners around the world, and we're very committed to making sure that we protect each other and help each other through this time. Because I think by the end of this, we will have more people doing sports and more customers enjoying the sports that we love as well, and we just need to be there to continue once we're through the worst of this.
No, I completely agree. I've never seen so many posts about people either, you know, running in their yard, running on treadmills. I've seen people that I would have never imagined some of my friends running are now posting about running. So I do think it provides a great opportunity. It is light at the end of the tunnel. So kudos to Scott for embracing that and taking on those challenges. I'd just like to go in and talk about a few of the products and some of the marquee, you know, Scott products. And for me, as you mentioned, the footwear's a big one. And one of the ones, and my personal favorite, is the Scott, the Super Track RC. You know, it's known for its, you know, famous 360 traction, and you know, the traction matters aspect of that. Can you just talk us through some of the design and what went into the thoughts around creating such a, you know, in my aspect, a very nimble but also very responsive and agile shoe?
Yeah, I mean, with the development of this shoe, we really went back to basics, and we tried to kind of clear our mind, if you like, of the other products that were out on the market. And so we did a lot of research. We actually teamed up with the Technical University in Munich. They do a lot of traction testing for football or soccer, depending on where in the world you are. And we took runners, our elite team, and we really analyzed how they were moving in the mountains, their dynamic movements. And we think of running as kind of this sport where you're perhaps running in a straight line, one foot in front of the other. But when you look at these guys and girls that are moving in the high mountains, I mean, the really technical stuff, the sky running, these kind of exposed ridges, you're moving side to side as much as you are in a forward motion. So we started to look, and actually the dynamic movements of a really technical sky runner, they're moving more like, say, a tennis player, a squash player, or even a football player who's moving around the pitch, changing direction. And this really led us to the, if you like, the design of the outsole, which is this radial traction, this 360-degree traction solution. And this just means by having these cleats positioned in this radial pattern, that regardless of which way or which direction that the shoe lands on the ground, you're always having a bite face from one of these cleats that's interacting. And that's really quite unique, I think, in the marketplace, to have something that's not really focusing on perhaps running in a straight line all the time, but really very dynamic and moving more laterally. And I think this really comes down to the core of when we're looking at the end consumer, rather than kind of taking kind of a generalist approach. We really want to look at perhaps the niches or the more specialist users, and really design something that very much specifically works for them. And so this isn't your kind of daughter trail or your road shoe. I mean, this is really specifically designed for running higher up in the mountains. But there's a lot that we can learn from a product like this that we can then bring to a more a consumer who's running in a more varied terrain, if you like.
Yeah, no, and I think that the 360 traction really covers that, and I would almost say it's a 3D traction, because you've got the X, Y, and almost even the Z axis covered on that shoe. So yeah, we got the RC, and then you've also got the Super Track 2s, which is quite a new line. Why did Scott decide to launch the Super Track 2s, and what terrain is that kind of suitable for?
Yeah, so that was really a reflection, if you like, of where we went. So 4 years ago, when we came out with the Super Track RC, this shoe really got a strong following amongst sky runners. But of course, there's a wider customer that A, doesn't feel comfortable, or isn't at the fitness level, or just doesn't have the real technical stuff on the doorstep available to them. And so what we looked to do was to bring in a shoe where we took a lot of the learnings from the Super Track RC, took some of this cleat technology, this outsole technology, but now put it with a more cushioned drop, so an 8mm drop, a bit more cushioning, and just kind of a less locked down upper, giving the foot a little bit more space to move, and yeah, so something that is really more relevant to people that don't live with the big mountains right on their doorstep. You have to give me just two seconds to plug in my laptop just before I drop out.
No worries, Pete. Yeah, and just while you're doing that, I think that's really great. You've focused on the next evolution of the shoe, right? You went from the RC, which was focused a lot, as you mentioned, your sky runners, your mountain runners, really technical runners, and now you've gone to you're almost your everyday trail enthusiast shoe in the 2.0.
Yeah, and I won't go too much into the rest of the collection, but I think if you take a look at what we're doing, we're really trying to service every type of terrain. So whether that is from road to trails to mountain running, but every type of customer as well. So saying that if you're a racer and you're looking for that lightweight, responsive, kind of pure technical shoe, we have it. But also the customer who wants a one shoe quiver. They want to buy just one shoe that they can run on all terrains. Nice, good durability, good sustainable story, comfort and protection is their key. Then we also have shoes like that in the collection. But kind of at the core of everything, we really believe that traction, keeping you up the right way round and moving efficiently across the mountains is kind of key.
Yeah. No, and then just we'll briefly just touch base on some of the other products in the line, covering kind of the rest of the body, which are really popular. And what we're seeing here in Asia, especially, is the windbreaker, the waterproof jacket, and the RC tops. And what I can speak from is I wear them here running in Asia quite often, because we have some quite temperature swings. We get some torrential rains. and they're quite good even in those humid climates. So was that a design thought to, having something that protects you but also doesn't get you wet from the inside out?
Yeah, and it depends. The longer you're running, of course, the more weather that you end up coming in contact with. So again, with our apparel collection, we really try to put the customer first. We're looking at well, what it is that they need. So we start with a piece like the waterproof jacket that I have here. One of the key requirements that we found from our racers. And strangely enough, they were kind of saying to us, hey, I'm not so bothered about staying dry because I'm going to sweat. What I really want is to make sure I can pass the kit checks on the big
Yeah.
races. They're really concerned about just getting their kit past the
Yeah.
kit. So of course, we want these pieces to be versatile. We want to make sure that if you want to use it as a waterproof, it fully works as a waterproof. We want to keep it breathable. But we also then reached out to Skyrunning and to people like UTMB and said, okay, but if we produce something, for example, on the jacket, we have these big vented open panels on the back, which would, technically would not be allowed in races because this is a non-waterproof element, but it allows huge amounts of breathability. But we ran all of this tech past those race organizations and said, hey, if somebody turns up at the kit check, are they going to be allowed in with this? And we got it all signed off. So, making sure that not only the product really works from a kind of a technical standpoint, but it works in reality for people who then want to make sure they're using it in those races. So the Pertex Shield is kind of one of those lovely fabrics, lots of stretch, 2020 waterproof and breathability. So it has a super high-end use. And then we really stripped it back, put as much breathability and kept the weight down for the racers. The windproof is, again, a kind of a requirement for people out running, but we wanted to strip some of the weight back. So this is where some of the innovation comes in, removing the zip from the front of the piece. Sorry, I'm back to front with the camera. Putting stretch panels into the back of the piece so that you can still comfortably get the piece on and off, but really allowing the back of the garment to breathe using the air-tastic material, and then just shedding a whole load of weight by removing that zip. And then our race day tees, we just source really the best material, so the lightest, highest wicking materials that we can. And then for the race stuff, it's really about keeping it simple, super strong graphics so that you can kind of be seen out there in the black and yellow. But if it doesn't need to be on there, we keep it off the race stuff. There is also an inline collection where there's a few more bells and whistles for people that want some pockets and some more functionality. But in general, the racers, if they can get their gels, get their hydration in it, then they're good to go.
Yep. No, and greatly appreciate it and really enjoy the stuff on, especially where we look at collaborating with the race organizations, because it's really nice to be able to get there and also to get your stuff through the gear checks without having to pack additional gear. Hey, Wayne, did we lose Pete? I think we've lost Peter. Let's just give it a minute here and see if Peter rejoins us. All right, that's okay. We'll take an opportunity to discuss some of the rest of Peter's things later on in the broadcast if he's able to rejoin us. So now I will bring in Ruth Croft. Oh, there's Peter. Hey, Peter.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not Ruth Croft. Much slower.
Hey, welcome back, Peter. Okay.
Sorry, hi.
Hey, no worries. We'll continue on. Sorry, just one of them caught up here. Okay. I think we'll go into explaining a little bit about some of the famous hashtag that Scott has now in the no shortcuts and how important that is to the brand and in everything you do, and also with how that relates to what your athletes and we ultimately do as end users.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of if you like, really materialized no shortcuts a few years ago, but it was something that was kind of always at the core of the business, and we've never been ones to kind of rush in with a quick fix. really through the history of the brand, whether that was when we were developing our first goggles, the aero handlebars in the Tour de France, and then through to the footwear program and the running program. It was always, you know, we want to be in these markets for the long term, and we want to bring solutions that really work for customers. And so No Shortcuts was really about doing the right things for the right reasons. And it kind of formed our, if you like, our company motto for how we operate internally. But it just became more relevant in the last few months as well. I mean, you know, we have to protect not only our company but our industry and the human race, if you like, for the future. So doing things as a knee jerk that are just going to see a short-term gain, you know, these things aren't really beneficial in the long run. And so no Shortcuts is just kind of our way of doing things, to take our time and get them right and do them right the first time.
Yep. Excellent. And the other one that's been coming up quite a bit that you mentioned that now is the Keep the Passion hashtag. There's been a lot coming out about that, and there's been lots of really great media releases around that. I'll actually get Wayne to play one of the ones that was created. It's the final one in a series of 3 that was developed by Scott Asia, featuring some of their ambassadors. Could you play that now, Wayne? And then we can have a quick discussion about this after.
Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright.
Well, I hope everyone watching enjoyed that video. And as I mentioned, that was kind of the last in a series of 3 from Scott Asia and Sportalicious, featuring some of the ambassadors. And that was just our little way of getting out there to, you know, keep the passion. And I think, can you just talk about a little bit of the mindset and what come up with that Keep the Passion hashtag?
Yeah, I mean, it was a really organic process, actually. We just started to see exactly what you've just shown. You know, we know that running long distances, or if you're into skiing or biking, that you know, it's really addictive, and it becomes a lifestyle. And I mean, you switch it off, and it's really painful, right? I mean, emotionally, physically, you're really used to it. So we just started to see that people were posting more and more of these videos of where they were just trying to do something. I mean, in the darkest moments of the lockdown in certain countries, you know, it really was, you were indoors and you had to try and find something to do. So we just started to collate them. It was more just a case of just finding a central place and a central kind of tag that we could pull this stuff together. And honestly, it's not something that we're necessarily creating anything from Scott Global. It's just our ambassadors, our athletes, our retail partners, our customers. They're kind of doing it by themselves, and we're just creating a central place that everyone can share it and see it. But it kind of leads me on to, you know, to a question I had for you, actually. I mean, I saw you asked me about Keep the Passion, but you're the one that went out and ran 130K on the treadmill. I mean, How was that? Where did the idea for that come from?
Yeah, the idea came from that. I mean, I collaborated with some friends, and the Stay at Home Ultra is kind of where it came from. Ian Corliss ran that one, and it was
Sure.
predominantly aimed to raise funds for the NHS in the UK, and just support the doctors and nurses that were out there relentlessly supporting the people around. So yeah, running 12 hours straight on a treadmill and attaining 131 kilometers was quite a challenge, mentally more so than physically. But it was, my passion for that was, it was nothing compared to the doctors, nurses, and all the frontliners that were out there fighting this. I mean, I have friends that were doctors and nurses. They're doing 36-hour shifts, 3 hours on a couch and back at it. So that's really where mine came from. It came to say thank you to them, and also help raise money, raise awareness, and to show people that, you don't have to always be out on the trails as much as we would love to be, and keep that passion.
And I hear you're not done. You're going for 200 miles. Is
Yes.
that right? When's this happening? What's the strategy behind it?
I'm not done yet. I'm on to my next challenge, which will be the big one. Yes, I'm going to do 200 miles on the treadmill, and that'll happen. It'll start on the 22nd of May.
Okay, well, best of luck for that. We'll be rooting for you.
Cheers. Thanks a lot, Pete. Thank you for joining us. I'll bring you back in at the end of the broadcast for some final words. And now we'll go to our next guest, Ruth Croft. Hi, Ruth. How are you?
Hey, I'm well. And you?
Hey, Ruth. Good. So welcome.
Thanks for having me. I can't believe you're going to run 200 miles or 200K on a treadmill.
200 miles, 322 kilometers.
Oh my gosh, you're crazy.
Looking for the next mental challenge. I think that's been the biggest thing for me during this period. It's been trying to get that little mental aspect, that extra notch when we do get back out on the trails, that mental strength.
Yeah. Well, you're definitely taking it to another level.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and then welcome to the broadcast. And now, a few questions about you, just to get to know you a little better for those of us that don't know you or don't follow you too well, and then a little bit of insight into what drives you, what keeps your passion going.
Yeah, sure.
So, what are you best known for?
Well, recently, because of lockdown, I'd say my baking and cooking is probably better known for that than my running at the moment. But also on top of that, I coach online, and then also I'm studying naturopathy at the moment, and then of course running as well. Yeah.
Excellent, and your wax on, wax off skills were excellent as well.
Oh yeah, that too.
Yeah. What are you doing to keep yourself fit at this point in time? Are you mixing it up? Or are you doing a little
Yeah, well,
cross?
uh, in New Zealand, it's not as bad, I think, as Malaysia and that. And we were in lockdown for 4 weeks, but we were still allowed to go outside and exercise locally, as long as you didn't drive to a trailhead or anything. So it didn't affect my training too much because I can run locally. I definitely wasn't doing any big mountain missions or anything like that. But then, this has been 6 weeks. We had 4 weeks of this lockdown, and then we kind of went down a level and we could drive to trails. But I just found, my motivation kind of has dipped the last couple of weeks. And so I've been taking the last 2 weeks pretty easy, because originally I was training for Transvolcania. So we just kind of kept going with that training. And then, pulled it back a bit because the motivation wasn't there. And there was also no real reason to push the envelope with training right now. And then after a couple of easier weeks, I'm ready to get back into it at the moment. Yeah.
That's good. I think that leads a little bit into my next question of what new things are you picking up, or what additional things are you doing to keep you motivated and to keep your sanity?
Yeah. So as I just said, like for motivation, I just kind of pulled back the training a bit. And then I've just kind of, I think a lot of people at the moment can get really stuck doing a lot of at-home workouts and burn yourself out doing those, so that when they do get to the point where they're allowed outside to exercise, they might already be burnt out from all those at-home workouts. So I think the main thing at the moment is just to listen to what feels best, and like mentally as well. I think it's good to be a bit active, but to not overdo it.
Yep. No, excellent. And yeah, I guess once all the COVID's over and everything else, I mean, your goals have been affected just like everyone else's. Race schedules, things have changed. What's the first big goal or the first
Yeah.
big thing on your plate coming up after we return to, I guess, our new normal?
Our new normal. Well, at the moment, I don't know when I'm going to be able to travel again or travel to any races. So I'm just looking at what I can do locally in New Zealand. There's some trails here that I want to go and run over, and maybe like do a few FKTs that I can do locally. And then maybe our borders will open to Australia. So we'll see what's happening over there as well. But I think for these next few months, I'll just be racing and running locally, and then just seeing what happens over in Europe, and if there will be any races in September or later on or not.
Yep. And I guess the new phenomenon coming out of this is the virtual runs and the virtual races. Have you got involved in
Yeah.
that much, and are you getting involved in that too much?
Yeah, I've done a few. Like we had the one that I run five. I ran for that, did a bit of
Yeah.
that, and then there was one Scotty Hawker did locally, and then I was supposed to do one last night with Sky Running, which I did, but I got the time difference mucked up. So um yeah, and then I was a bit late to it, and then had some technical difficulties as well, and so it wasn't a very successful virtual race, so I've definitely got room for improvement there.
Excellent. But yeah, I think it's a neat concept, and it's just feeding on our competitive edge and keeping us out there and kind of showing people we can still inspire them while we're stuck wherever we are.
Yeah, like it was good last night to just have some of the connection with the skyrunning ones, because I
Yep.
don't think we're going to have that in person. So yeah, to still be able to have it virtually was cool, even if I was a bit late.
No, excellent. Yeah, I'd just like to speak about one of the videos, that you've, well, not recently done, but done a little while ago, the West Coaster. I really enjoyed that, watching, kind of your progression and where you talked about,
Hmm.
and it really showed your character, that humble, shy, generous, but tough Kiwi girl, and then going through your journey on running. And kind of out of that, one question for me that kind of bases on the car wash video I seen, where you do your wax on, wax off. Who would be the Mr. Miyagi in your life as far as running? Who is kind of that teacher and that
Oh,
person you really go to and then look up to for that advice and that assistance in running?
there's a couple of people. That one of the guys who was actually on the film, Eddie Gray, he lives like in a shack, doesn't own a car, like ran everywhere growing up, and he's just super humble, down to earth guy. And I used to run with him. He was the one that used to take me on a lot of the trails where a lot of the mines and that were coal mines were where I grew up. So he's definitely impacted me a lot. And then also probably my coach too, Jono White. He's 6 times mountain running world champion, and then also represented New Zealand at the Olympics in the marathon. And he's just done well on a variety of terrain, so on the mountain running and then also on the road, and that's something that really inspires me. And he's also a Kiwi, down to earth and super humble, and yeah, I just get along with him really well, and he's taught me a lot over the years.
Awesome. That's excellent. And it's nice you're in close proximity to those people as well, right? You can still get there. You can get out on the trails with them. You can go for a meal and just enjoy outside of running. As the video alluded to, you don't spend a lot of
Yeah,
time talking
definitely.
about running. You spend most of your time talking about, hey, how's it going, and everything else, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Um, just a quick view on sky running, trail running, and ultra running. Can I hear your views on them and any advice to those who are looking to venture into one of those three fields?
Yeah, so skyrunning essentially is like quite technical, and normally they're supposed to be over 2,000 meters. And they have, within skyrunning, they have like the VK, the the sky race, and then sometimes they'll have the ultra. But if you want to know about skyrunning, you just think it's the technical, a lot more technical. And then for ultra, that it depends who you talk to about ultra. Ultra essentially is anything over the marathon distance, but for some people, they say an ultra isn't like is 100K or more. And then trail running can be anything from like K to, you could say, even an ultra is like trail running as well. So it's kind of trail running, and then you've got your sky running, and then ultra. It's kind of quite confusing because there's so many distance and disciplines as well, and then you've got mountain running too. So yeah.
Yeah. And any advice on people who kind of new and looking to venture into one of those fields or cross over between them?
I just think, like in general, for trail running, what I noticed when I lived in Taiwan was that there were a lot of people who came from the road running background and wanted to get into trail running. And I think the main thing I noticed was a lot of people would go from running a 42K road marathon to running a 100K ultra. There was no real in between. So I think the main thing to always remember is to really like respect the distance and start off with maybe a 50K trail race, get your nutrition dialed in, get really good and at understanding and training your body for that distance, and then step up to a 60K or a 70K. Don't be in a rush just to tick off 100K or say I've run 100 miles. Really enjoy the process and enjoy it along the way.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Enjoy the process and take your time, because it is a process. So great advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, on to your 2019. I mean, 2019, you had an amazing season, right? Coming first OCC, first at Marathon de Mont Blanc, second in the World Trail Running, third place at the Golden Trail Series. How did you keep your passion and motivation through all that? I mean, those are some pretty intense races, and you had some intense battles in those races. How did you keep motivated, keep that passion going?
I think when I look at planning my calendar for the year, it's really important to have some races that you're doing, some different races that are new and exciting. And I had a few in there. I did the Dolomiti Sky Race, which I'd never done before, in Jedamont. So that really helps me personally for motivation when I have new races in there. But also, I did the road marathon in Seoul in
Yep.
March, and for me that was completely new and really a completely different focus. And so I was also able to work on speed, which I felt I hadn't been able to do the previous years. And I think that really helped play onto my trail season as well. But the main thing I always think is to not get stuck doing the same races and have a bit of variety there.
Yeah, excellent. And to say you just ran the Seoul Marathon, I think that's an understatement. You crushed it with a 2:36. So that's awesome. And I'm just going to get Wayne to play a video of the Sierra Zenal race last year, and then we can just have a discussion about that finish. That's one of the moments I really enjoyed of your running season last year. Can you just play that video, Wayne?
Okay.
Jean Metz, vainqueur aujourd'hui et record. Magnifique, c'est une émission tout simplement exceptionnelle. Applaudissez-les, ils vont pas tarder. Et surtout, ne manquez pas la Mesdames et messieurs, Ruth, Croft, 4e position. Pour un titre personnel, comment t'as vécu cette course au niveau des conditions?
Hey, welcome back. Yeah, just an amazing finish to that race, and then amazing battle there at the end. Both of you pushing and pushing and pushing. What were you feeling at that particular moment, and what was kind of your motivation to just keep that relentless drive going?
Yeah, that race was Serres-Zanal, and it's kind of a tricky one because you have a really steep about. I think it's within the first, I don't know how many K, but you do 1,600 meters of climbing. I think it's like 11K. And then you have a flat section. It's not really flat. And then you've got 5K of this descent to the finish. And actually in 2018, I was doing it and I actually got passed. So the opposite happened. I got passed on the home straight. And so last year I was like, okay, you can't let that happen again. It can't be 2 years in a row.
So it was payback. It was someone else's turn to feel that. Right.
Yeah.
In your own words, can you explain to us what does the no shortcuts motto mean to you and to you personally in your life?
Yeah, for me, like no shortcuts. It just means just do your best. Like whatever you are doing at that moment or in your life is just do your best. And if you're doing your best, you're not taking shortcuts or finding a quick way of getting a result of that. And so yeah, really in your training or yeah, as I said, in your everyday life is just doing your best.
Excellent. And last question. In the next 2 years, where do you see yourself? And do you still see yourself in the sport, pushing the limits in the sport?
I hope so. Yeah. 2 years. Yeah. So like a couple of years ago, I started going down the ultra route and kind of wanted to do UTMB in Western States, and then I did Labrador and kind of realized I actually didn't like the long ultras. I didn't like poles, and I didn't really like hiking. So I switched back down to the shorter distance. Like I think at the moment I'm really enjoying the sub 50 miles because it's just a bit. I like to be able to run and to not have to hike, and also I don't like having to think about my nutrition for like over 14 hours. And so just I'm really enjoying those distances at the moment. And then I think eventually I would like to get back to trying ultras and that, but I think I've still got a few years left doing these shorter races.
Excellent. Well, yeah, we hope you're still here as well, and rooting for you all the way, Ruth. Thank you for joining us.
Awesome.
I'll bring you back
Thanks,
in
Mike.
at the end for some final words. I'll bring on our next
cheers, Mike.
guest. Yeah, cheers. Thanks, Ruth. I'll bring on our next guest, Scott Elite Asia Ambassador, and probably the face of Scott in Asia, Alessandro Sherpa. Hey, Sherpa.
Here we go.
Hey,
Hi,
how's
Mike.
it going?
All good, all good. Keeping well.
Yeah, trying to get back outside and get some running now that the movement control order is starting to ease up a little bit.
Yeah, I've been running this week since Monday, and it's really tough, honestly, after 45 days of indoor training. But I'm really happy to be out again.
Excellent. So I think a lot of the viewers and a lot of people in Asia know you from kind of 2018 to now, where you were kind of heavy in the Asia Trailmaster scene, 2018 Asia Trailmaster champion. But I want to take a little bit of a step back and go into, a little bit earlier in your career. And, during your younger days in Italy, where you learned, your great talents in mountain biking and swimming also. Um, so in your mountain biking, were you competitive back then? And can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've been racing in mountain biking for 6 years when I was a teenager, basically. I came from a small town on the mountain, so between pine trees and blue lakes, so it was very easy to be outdoor for me. But I call it my mistake age because this journey was for me a roller coaster because I had to match three different worlds like the school, my sport, and the clubbing life. I think everyone at that age who is into sport has to take a decision. There are people who are driven by parents, people who are driven maybe because they are more strong and they has stronger discipline. And for me at the time, I had to match these three words where my family was really sported oriented, but was more school oriented than sport. So for my mom, the university degree was a ticket for happiness. And so the priority for my family was the school. While for me, I was very competitive in clubbing and drinking and be outside. So I had to face this world, and the outcome was that I had a really up and down in terms of performances. I raced at that time in the national championship of mountain biking for short races like 40K races. And but then in 2006 I moved to UK, so I didn't have at the time any big target, so I was really confused going into my life step by step, and so I left and I quit that sport at the time.
Okay. Do you ever think you'll get back into that sport? Do you ever think you'll get back into mountain biking?
Well, I do. I still love cycling, and actually, as soon as I moved to Asia in 2016, my idea was to join mountain biking or cycling. But then the scenario here in Asia was not as competitive, and the races around the panorama of competition was not so full as the running world, and also was for me that I was moving for my business around Asia very often. It was not easy to moving with a bike or to training. So that's the point where I stepped into running.
Yep. And how did you stumble into the trail running or get involved in the trail running scene, when you first arrived in Asia?
Yeah, when I moved to Singapore in 2016, I was following my business dream. And as soon as I moved to Singapore, I was pulled into the nightlife from my business connection and very average expatriate life in Asia. You can imagine like a single Italian guy arriving in Asia. I mean, is welcome to paradise. So after a few months, I really felt, I think I understood that the place where you are not is as important as the place where you are. So I started to focus my energy in people and places where I wanted to be. And I rather be at home with a book than outside clubbing or fishing for girls. And so that was, I start to read, work very hard and running. So at that time, it was my safe place and it was the main driven of my focus in business and in life.
Excellent. And what made you think you can excel in the sport of trail running? And did you think you could excel, or was it more just something you wanted to try out first?
Well, honestly, I ramped up quite hard because I train. I was in Singapore jogging just to unwind my mind after the office, and then with some friends I tried to register to 3 or 4 trail running competition, like 20, 25K, and I won all the first races I was taking part to. So for some reason I just say, okay, that is interesting. I just ride the wave, and then suddenly in a couple of months I decide to register to my first long distance running, and now my love is mainly for ultra distances.
Yep. And that first 100K race, I believe, was TMBT. And then how did you do in that one?
Well, yeah, it was September 2017. So for me, it was like buying a ticket to Tibet for 7 years. It was I really need to stay with my own and to look into my mirror. And for some reason, I felt also watching YouTube videos and following this ultra trail running world. Someone said that. Ultra races is like a lifetime in a day, and so I felt that was an occasion to stay with my own and to think about everything. So I decided to register to the MBT. I moved to Thailand for 1 month at the time, and I really trained like from basically from jogging to train twice per day and running 150K per week. And then beginning of September, I joined TMBT, and I won the race with Milton Amat. So also there was like, okay, I can do it, and was something that pulled me into this world.
Excellent. And now speaking on that kind of the Asia Trail Masters Championships and being the champion in 2018, do you have bigger plans past Asia Trail Masters and any big European races on the cards, potentially UTMB or some of the other ones?
Well, as we said before, I like to enjoy the process. So for me, I don't have a destination. It's a infinite finishing line. So I really like this journey, especially from traveling point of view and meeting people point of view. For this, I have to thank Asia Trail Master because it is giving an opportunity for in this part of the world to everyone to explore untouched places and to meet awesome community. So yeah, back in 2018 when I won the season, I really commit myself a lot, and I'm really happy that I achieved that result. Now I'm taking more as enjoying new places and meeting new people. Is a fantastic experience, and at the moment, unfortunately, we don't know for the 2020 what will be the races that are still on. I'm targeting now the LAT Ultra race that should be in June in Vietnam, but we are just waiting, and I think the main problem will be about the flights, so move from one country to another, and we will see. But yeah, there are still a lot of races in Asia and in Asia Trail Master circuit that I want to join, I want to explore. So at the moment, I don't really have plan to fly back to Europe for races. UTMB is in my to-do list. I think I'm not ready first, and second, I have plenty of choice here. I think the quality of races in Asia is rising, and competitiveness also is rising as well. So at the moment, I'm happy to compete here. I go back to Europe, to my country in Italy, 1 or twice a year, and every time I go back, I try to race 1 or 2 races, depending on how long I'm gonna stay there.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, and on to some of that. When Asia speaks Scott, they speak Alessandro Sherpa. You're kind of known as the face of Scott in Asia. How do you feel about being the face of Scott in Asia?
Well, I'm very proud of it. I mean, for me, also being here in a box next to Ruth Croft is something like incredible. And so I really, beside the running shoes and all the top gear that Scott provide, I really like the family. I mean, you know very well, we are all very like grounded and humble. So this is what drive me with all my sponsor, and I have to thank them to give this opportunity, also to boost the community of trail running. And I think here in Southeast Asia, you know, most of the time we meet all the same people around Asia, and this is for me the main drive of this sport. Yeah,
no, can't agree more. It's that family atmosphere. Our trail brothers and sisters out there all the time. So well said. The hashtag no shortcuts. You know what does that mean to you, and how do you live that in everyday life and also in your training life?
Well, to me I think this hashtag has everyone can give a personal reading of this thing, and to me is very simple that life is not easy, life is not fair. It was not, and it will never be. So you know, in life, I think things that where you have to put and to break a sweat to obtain are always the things that give you fulfillment and happiness. So no shortcut for me is you need to be aggressive, be confident in choose your hill and in climb your hill, but you need also to be patient and to go through everything, putting one foot in front of the other.
And how do you see yourself growing with the brand and growing with Scott in Asia and beyond?
Well, I hope actually in Asia we are ramping up as Scott, so it's like in a starting up process, and I'm really happy to be part of this project. It's really fantastic, and the feedback from the community is wonderful. So I hope to be in this family for the next years. I don't want to leave running for a while. So yeah, let's see. I mean, as I said before, I like to enjoy the process and without putting any destination or any limit.
Excellent. That leads into the next question. Where do you foresee yourself 2 years from now, and will you still be doing trail running?
Well, yeah, I think I will be still in this world. I usually live with no plan. I mean, as far as I can afford to live with no plan, because I have basically no family, and I'm quite flexible to move around the world. So I think for the next 2 years, for sure, I will be still in Asia, and I will be enjoying the ultra trail running scene here. But I also plan to be more often back to Europe, because for family reason, and also to stay with my niece that is growing and whatever. And I'm aware that back in Italy we have awesome mountains that I really want to enjoy before to turn 60. So the plan is to switch and flip between Europe and Asia for the next year.
Well, on that, you've got a little bit of time. You recently celebrated your 35th birthday, so happy birthday, Sherpa.
Thank you.
And yeah, the hashtag keep the passion. How will you keep that going, and how will you keep sharing that, even going past the end of the FPO period and the lockdown period?
Yeah, that was a really strong message that I think everyone and try to spread, and to. It's very easy to sit on the couch in this time, and to. It's very difficult to feed. I mean, sport-wise, to feed your passion from an apartment is something that we have never experienced before, and we hope we won't experience anymore in the future. But it was a challenge. It is a challenge, and this is what we like. And I think most of the people I'm in touch with, they pick up the challenge, and everyone in his own way, running on the balcony, running inside the house. You run 100 kilometers on the treadmill. So everyone try to go through, and I think everyone contribute a little bit to inspire each other, and this is the power of the community.
Excellent. No, that's great. And thank you very much for sharing your views and joining us on this broadcast, Sherpa. I'll now bring back Pete and Ruth, and we'll have some final comments, and we'll close out this Go Live session. Hey, welcome back, Ruth. Hey, Pete.
Hi, welcome back.
Welcome back. Yes, and thank you guys for joining and sharing, your insights, your opinions, your motivations, your keeping the passion, and no shortcuts. Just as we wrap this out, any last words, and then we'll just go do a round table. Any last words, any final motivations? And I guess we'll start with you, Sherpa.
Well, I think we are at the end of the toughest phase of this experience, or these things. So I think the bed is on the back, and we have done a good job. And now it's time to go outside. The mountains are still there, and we will meet soon back in the races or trails. And I also want to say to Ruth Croft that she's awesome and incredible runner.
Thanks, Sherpa. And to you, Pete.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, just thank you for pulling this together. Thank you to Sherpa and Ruth for your time, and Michael, thank you for hosting this. Yeah, it's a difficult time. We have to kind of pull together, be kind to each other, look after each other, and I look forward to seeing everybody out on the trails when we can finally get outdoors and get back to business.
Excellent. Thanks, Pete. And Ruth.
Yeah, maybe just a bit of advice for people once you get out of lockdown is not to ramp up the training too much. I think everyone will be pretty excited to get back running, but just to be wary not to do too much too soon and get injured and then not be able to run. But otherwise, yeah, thanks for having me on, and it's good to connect with everyone during this time.
Yeah, excellent, awesome, and thanks for joining us, and yeah, thanks to everyone for joining live, and I hope you enjoyed this broadcast and got some insight into Scott and the Scott athletes in our world, and no shortcuts. And as everybody says, we're going to be back on the trail soon, so let's get out there, let's enjoy it, and then let's make the most of it. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye now.